Okay, so let's continue. Do you have any questions so far? About our philosophy and how they determine our method that we use?
Prof,
Yes.
can you please go back on the slide on research method?
On
Yes, this one.
Yeah, this one. Okay.
Yes. Alrighty. I lost coverage when you were on this one. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to, yeah.
Okay.
Then it's good. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was saying that the research method is a detailed plan on how you are going to achieve your objective. Remember that the starting point of any research is what we call a research question. So what is the question you have in mind that you want to resolve? You know, because a research always starts from a question. You are asking yourself a question. Is this problem, I'm struggling with this problem, I want to resolve it. Then you make a decision. Then you come out with that research question, help you drive your objective. So you come out with your objective. Now you need a plan on how to achieve that objective. That is your method. So your research method is your detailed plan on how you are going to achieve your objective. So as a result, help you to respond your initial research questions that you had in mind. So it uses what we call a methodical approach, you know, able to bridge the gap between your philosophy that is going into your mind, what things that you believe in, and the actual thing that you are going to do. So that approach will bridge that gap. You say, okay, this is my plan, the way I think, this plan will help me resolve the question that I have or achieve my objective. Okay, so we have mainly those two methods that we have discussed, the quantitative and the qualitative, but there are also some subset of those methods that stand aside, like something like your case study. Any idea what a case study is? What is a case study?
Hello.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but I think it's whereby you are studying a certain group of people. It could be retrospective or something like that.
A group of people. You are studying a group of people. Anyone else who can?
For me,
yes.
Case study, I think it's really specific to that certain case. Let's say maybe in a clinical study, it's maybe that one patient. So it's basically more focused, specified only on that person. You know, so you dig deep only on that case.
So you dig more. You might sometimes in a case study, sometimes you only follow that. Okay, Casey.
Yes, Prof. I think this is the kind of study which was done in a specific group of people on a specific time to find out a specific, to answer a specific question, let me say. So the group, the participant and the time is more or less, it is already fixed.
Okay,
so it
so
is not
a case,
ongoing things here.
Yeah, so a case study is actually, as our previous colleague also said, you might have sometimes only one case or one patient, or maybe two or three or few cases, you know. So that you follow up and you go and dig more about those cases. Usually it's unusual cases, like in a clinical studies, in a clinical research is done more often, where it's a case that is unusual or it's a highly interesting case. Sometimes you only publish about that one patient, or maybe 2 or 3 with a similar characteristics that you try to follow up with more details. Okay. Then we also have, what about what we call action research or action-oriented research? What is that? Yes? Yes, Casey?
Let me try if I am correct.
Yeah. We are here to
Action-oriented
discuss, to
research.
learn.
Yeah. This means for me, we have already identified a problem. We want to solve this problem. We don't know how to solve it. So we are intentionally organized to find a solution for this problem. So that means to act so that we can get something new by solving this problem. I think that's my understanding.
You're right. So we try to intentionally try to resolve a specific problem, and it's usually for public health benefit. So, and that's why we come back again to the role of university when we spoke about knowledge-based economy, you know. So as researchers, usually we don't know, sometimes we don't know the role that university should play in a specific community. Let's say we have Walter Sisulu University that is based, the Umtata campus, it's there. We have another campus in Butterworth, and wherever those campuses are, university should influence the community around it, you know? So that community that is around the university should become a different community. And we need to undertake those different type of research that we call action research, where researchers can actually go in a community and with community members, start something, do something, resolve a problem, a specific problem, you know, a practical problem, find a solution to the problem. And that community must feel that there is a university here that is resolving problem, because the role of a university is to generate new knowledge, and that knowledge need to impact the community around it. But you can't find a community where university is not different from other communities. It does not make any sense. So if you travel, you go overseas, you go especially in Europe where you find all the universities, the community around them adopted different attitudes. They become more knowledgeable. They understand a lot of conditions. They work with researchers, you know, to try to identify certain things, find the solution to real problems in those communities. So those, we need to think of action-oriented research. Like now we are facing the COVID-19 pandemic. Then researchers should be asking themselves, what is it that we can do to impact our community positively? Now, what kind of a project we can undertake to resolve real challenges that our community is facing? You understand? So sometimes we need to go beyond just those research for our own benefit, our own CV and the publications and you know, academic prestige. You know, most of the research we do just for academic prestige, but we also need to resolve real problems in our community. Okay. Yes, Pam.
Sorry, my internet was unstable, so I missed a lot in the beginning. I just wanted to add what you were saying about the role of the university in the community. One of the reasons why people are reluctant to participate in research is because they do not understand the role the university is supposed to play. Maybe the university does not represent itself or present itself to the community in the way that it should be. Because if the community understood that they should have, they should benefit from being part of the community where the university is situated, and therefore they are supposed to be partners. And in any improvement, particularly public health related issues in this context, then they will be easily be involved in matters that affect their communities. So when we talk about action research, even themselves, they would come up with their problems and ask the university, what is it that you can do for us? Is there any way that you could solve our problems? That would become research questions for the researchers. That is going to come back and be implemented and end up improving the situation or coming with solutions for the community. And therefore they feel that they are partners, they benefit, they're not only taking their children to the nearest university or the nearest institution. Thank you.
100% agreed. You see, that's you are the leaders, future leaders, or you are already leading at certain levels. So we need to understand these things. We are the one able to transform the community where we are living. So through our research, research should not be just for our own academic prestige, but we need to resolve real problems. We need to work with our community. The community need to feel comfortable and they need to feel that they are benefiting from the university that is sitting there in the middle of the community. We have to transform. We have to change things. We need to take our research at different levels. And we are lucky, like in Eastern Cape, where we are working really in rural areas, where there are so many things that we can do, you know, to benefit our community. Okay. So looking at a qualitative research, now you understand all those type of research. We speak about qualitative, quantitative, and we spoke about a subset of it, that's a case study or action research. Now, just briefly, a qualitative research, during a qualitative research, usually investigators explore, but most importantly, they try to find meanings that study participants ascribe to a problem of a research interest, you know. So if you are trying to explore something, you want to explore or you want to find meanings, if this is what you are trying to achieve, then it's better to take a qualitative route, you know. So that's where you will resolve your research question much more easily. When you want to explore, you want to find meanings, then you can do that in different ways. The process must probably consist of raising probing questions to get participants express themselves with respect to the subject. Let's say you want to do maybe a small focus group discussion. Then you have maybe 4 or 5 people. Then you start raising a number of questions, you know, probing questions. Then you make them express themselves, you know, talk more, try to give meaning, try to, you know, to explain more about their thoughts, you know, about a specific subject area that you are working on, you know. So sometimes that's what researchers in a qualitative studies do. Or maybe they use open-ended question. So a question where someone will not just say yes or no, but you give someone an opportunity also to say something, but not too open also, in order to allow them to be lost in their comments, you know. So you just help them in order to identify what are their underlying reasons or opinion and motivations in order for you to generate working hypothesis. So usually people who do mixed study design, when you want to do a mixed study design of qualitative and quantitative, that we call triangulation study, it's often good to start with a qualitative study. Then you start with a qualitative, you explore, you get certain information, you know, opinion about people, you get some meanings. Then from there, you then formulate hypotheses for your quantitative study. You understand? Then you are then going to look then a large population, you know, maybe with your questionnaire or whatever tool you are going to use. Then you can, then you can do a very good mixed study design. Okay. So that's what we look about qualitative. But when it comes to quantitative is about objectively testing your hypothesis. So remember that a qualitative study helps you to explore. It helps you to generate hypothesis. But when you want to test an hypothesis, or you want to measure relationship between variables, then you need now to do a quantitative study. So quantitative study will then help you to test a hypothesis by measuring the relationship between different variables. Then we have what we call dependent and independent variables. So let's try to understand that. What is the difference between a dependent variable and an independent variable? Pam, I saw your hands up. I don't know if it's the old hand or a new hand.
Yes, Prof. Awonke.
Yes, Awonke. Yeah.
Independent variable.
Yes.
The most commonly used example, it's time. It's not affected by, let's say, any external forces.
So you started by defining independent, right?
Independent.
Okay.
It's not affected as time. You cannot. There's nothing that can affect time.
Mm.
So it's an independent variable. But a dependent variable can change. Health can change due to age. For instance, as you grow old, or other factors like risk factors, maybe smoking, alcohol, and all those things. So health is a dependent variable. But age, as you grow, you cannot change that. So independent variable cannot be affected by external measures or forces.
Okay.
But dependent one can change.
Okay. Casey?
Yes, Prof. I think I agree with the previous speaker. The dependent variables, the variables, we can change the outcome. But independent, it don't change anything. It is to stand itself on its own. Yeah. Just shortly in that. Yeah, thanks.
So you will see that the people who will be doing a quantitative method, one of the most important thing is to know how to organize your variables, you know, to identify what are the dependent and the independent variables, you know. So the independent variables cannot be affected, but they do affect the dependent one. So the dependent, they depend, you know, or the dependent, we also call them the outcome variables, because the result can change, you know. So So let's say the age and the blood pressure. Okay, you want to do a study where you want to measure the age, the relationship between age and blood pressure. So you will see that the age will be an independent variable, but the blood pressure can change according to age group or age category. You know, the younger one will have a specific blood pressure. As you are growing in age, you know, the blood pressure is changing, you know, so you will see that the age is there. It is independent, but the blood pressure is the one changing, you know. So you need to be able to organize always your data to try to know you know, what are your dependent or independent variables. So these variables are often measured by means of a specific research instrument. So in quantitative studies, we also use a specific instrument, let's say a questionnaire, for example, you know, to collect the information, and they are then analyzed using a different statistical method, you know. Now, why do we use a statistical method to analyze the data? What is the value of statistics?
I think
Yes.
maybe it is to eliminate the margin of error if you use the statistics here.
Yeah, it's a help, you know, in terms of bias, different type of errors can be eliminated. And of course, when you are handling large data, you know, currently we also work with big data. Sometimes it's not, you are not going to use your fingers to count or, you know, to do things manually. So we have now different statistical method, and most of them are now, we have different software packages that can be used. It's usually to try to eliminate different errors, you know, biases that can be, or what we call confounders, you know, the confounding factors, you know, that can influence certain results. So statistical methods protect against any bias. So they control explanation and they are also able to make findings more generalizable, you know. So you will be able to generalize. So that's why it's very important that when we use that. But there are also now some software packages that are used to analyze also qualitative data. You know, there are also software packages that are used, you know, in terms of analyzing, making things much more easier when you are dealing with qualitative studies. And finally, quantitative research relies on measurable data to uncover a topic of interest in order to generate facts. So quantitative researchers believe on facts that are generated from numbers, you know, not from people's speculations. Then we have people who deal with a mixed method. We have mixed method research that we said, where you can combine both quantitative and qualitative. And as I said, it's better you start with qualitative research so that you can explore something, then generate hypothesis, then you do quantitative study to try to test your hypothesis. So this approach aims at integrating the two forms of data, you know, and it is thought to provide a more complete understanding of the research problem than using one method alone, you know. So it means that you are much more pragmatic to try to combine the two methods. And in the case study, as we already define it, we say this is an in-depth investigation of either a single case or a small number of cases, you know. And the information here during a case study can be obtained from multiple sources. So usually you can also use a mixed method. You know, you can do surveys, you can do interviews, you can do document review, you can follow patients. So you collect all that, you know, regarding a specific case, and you write that case with more details, you know. And usually it may be an unusual case or a case seen for the first time or a very interesting case in terms of enhancing people's understanding. You know, you can just decide to do a case study. Then we spoke about action-oriented research, that we say this refers to a practical research directed toward a change or the production of recommendations that are leading to a change. And usually it uses participatory process, combining theory and practice with action and reflection. As I say, you work more closely with the community to try to resolve real problems that they are facing. So you use your theoretical knowledge, assist them resolve problems that they are facing. Okay. So then you saw that the first layer, it's what we call in the research onion is your philosophy. Your philosophy drives the type of method that you choose. Then when you have chosen a method, then there is what we call a research design, you know. So people sometimes confuse these things. He wants to speak about method, then he's talking about design. Or he wants to speak about design, he's talking about a method. So you need to avoid that confusion to understand what the design is. So in order to obtain accurate and evidence-based findings, scientific studies rely on a chosen appropriate study design. So you need to choose a specific study design. So research design refers to the overall strategy used by a researcher to effectively address a research problem. You know, so remember the method. We say that the method is a plan. So you write a detailed plan on how you are going to achieve, to resolve, to respond to your research question. We say a method is a detailed plan, but a research design is now an overall strategy. Is now a strategy on how you are going to implement that plan, you know? So you have a plan. To implement that plan, you need a strategy. A strategy is what we call a research design. So the study design is the basis for a quality research project, you know, because the design will then give you step by step how you are going to implement your plan. Step by step, how do you go about this? Now, it's a kind of a quality control at the same time. Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you done this? You know, you understand? So that's the value of the design. So the design sets the scene. It helps you set the scene on how an overall research plan will be executed, what data are likely to be required, and what method will assist in appropriately answering the research question. You know, so you set the scene on how your plan will be executed. That is the research design. So when we write a proposal, you will see people confusing design and method and so on. They are not the same thing, okay? So those are the different types of study design. So the design can be for quantitative studies. For quantitative studies, we can have experimental or non-experimental design. That's what we call epidemiological studies. So we will look at epidemiological studies and the different study design under epidemiological studies. But you have true experimental studies and non-experimental studies. So all non-experimental studies are what we call epidemiological studies. Then you have the qualitative study. When you do a qualitative study, you also have qualitative design. So your qualitative design can be what we call exploratory design. If you're doing a qualitative study to explore, that's what we call phenomenology and ethnography. Those are exploratory design. Or you are going to use a grounded theory, or you are going to use a philosophical inquiry. So those are different design for qualitative study. So we will come back to the qualitative study. Let's go to the quantitative study first. Now, in the quantitative studies, we have what we call experimental versus non-experimental design. Now, in experimental design, the researcher is able to control the action. This is a true experimental. Now, people working in the lab, you know, people who are doing laboratory work, usually they do true experimental studies. You know, in a true experimental studies, the researcher is able to control his action of specific variables. He can manipulate the action in the lab. You know, you can manipulate your action. That's why we are saying now, oh, COVID-19 is escape from lab manipulation, this and that, because the researcher can manipulate his action. Okay? Then a researcher can then observe and measures the outcome that come out of it. Okay? So can anyone give me an example of any type of this study? Any studies why you think it's a true experimental?
Yes, Prof. Awang.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I'm right, but let's say you are testing a certain drug.
Yes.
Yes, you can. You have your population, your sample. Let's say you want to test that drug. Let's say you are using any animal. You can infect the animal with with a certain virus. You can give the vaccine.
Yeah.
And can actually infect the animal and look at their response.
And look at what will happen. And you can increase the concentration of the drug or the vaccine. So you can achieve different concentration. Then you manipulate the dose or whatever, then you see the outcome.
Yes.
You understand? So those are true experimental studies. So the researcher is actually under control. So he is the one able to control different things, you know. So we will see that there are also different types of experimental design. So we look at that true experimental design. We have also what we call the pre-test, post-test control group. Pre-test, post-test control. We have the post-test only control group, or that we call non-equivalent. We have what we call factorial designs, and we have time series. So we have those different types of experimental design that we are going to see. So the true experimental design that we talk about look for causality. You know, we try to look for causality. So to establish whether two variables are causally related, that is whether a change in independent variable X, like you say, a change in the concentration of a drug X, or a change in the concentration of a vaccine X when you are working with animals in the lab, result in a change of a dependent variable Y. It means that maybe, let's say you want to see the immune response of how that animal, the mice in the lab, will react when you start your initial phase of testing a vaccine, you know. So you must establish first, there is a time order. It means that the cause must have occurred before the effect. So you need to ensure that the cause, it means that the vaccine that you are injecting the mice, you did inject it before that you have the effect. That is, maybe you want to measure interferon gamma level, the level of interferon gamma in the blood of that mice. So you need to ensure that the cause occurred before the effect. Then you also need to see that there is a covariation. It means that changes in the value of independent variable must be accompanied by changes in the value of dependent variable. So if you increase the dose, you will see changes there. Or you reduce the dose, you will see changes. There is what we call covariation. There is a statistical association, you know, between the cause and the effect, you know. So those are the measures of causality. Then you have, there should be a rationale about what you are doing. Some rationale need to be there, you know. It means that there must be a logical and a compelling explanation why these two variables are related. You know, there should be some level of explanation. And lastly, there should be what we call non-spuriousness. So it must be established that the independent variable X, and only that X, was the cause of the changes in Y. You know, so it means that you need to eliminate the confounding variables. You need to eliminate the errors. You need to eliminate the bias to show that there is a causality. So those are true experimental design, you know. So in able to establish causality, one must use an experimental or quasi-experimental design. So you should note that it is never possible to prove causality 100%, but you can be able to show, you know, without doubt, to what degree the causality is probable, you know. So I will show you before we disconnect, and we can disconnect and come back, but I will show you one example of a study that I did, that is an experimental study. Okay, can you see? Yeah, so this is the study I did.